Unleash hell.
I told y'all wasn't going away.
Go. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Wayne Ste7en and welcome to Classic Comparison. What is Classic Comparison, you ask? Classic Comparison is where I take albums that were the soundtrack to my life, albums that I had lived experiences with, albums that I had memories that were the backdrop to, and I compare them track for track to see which albums were better. Now, along with that, there'll come some stories about my childhood. Maybe you had similar stories. Drop them in the comments if you had some stories that went along with these albums. We take for granted the fact that music was indeed the soundtrack to our lives. And if we go back to some of our best memories, I guarantee there's a song or a group of songs or a playlist that go with that. Now, for me, I wanted to start off with two iconic first albums from two iconic MCs. I wanted to compare the two albums, Illmatic and Ready to Die. Both of those are arguably top 5, top 10 hip hop albums of all time. And they came to me at a very pivotal point in my life when I was really trying to figure it all out. Listen, I want this to be a shared experience. So if you got some stories or if you got a memory, drop it in the comments, man. It makes it more fun for everybody because we all remember the days before bills came and just sucked the life out of us. That's all this is. Just take a little break from the norm and just remember some music that maybe you haven't remembered in a while. And maybe remember some people, places, and things that you've long since forgotten. Let's get to it. Go. So let's start with Nas Illmatic. That came out in April 1994. I was in my second year of high school. This is Helly Hansen. This is Guess Jeans. This is Jabot. This is Half Moon Parts. This is Feli's. This is New Balance. We're talking Philly blunts. We're talking nickel bags. We're talking very seeded weed. The weed, I don't know. The weed wasn't that good back then. I'm 16 years old, going on 16. And It Ain't Hard to Tell came on Video Music Box. And I immediately was like, what is this? Where are they from? Why have I never heard of this person? Because when he did Live at the Barbecue, I wasn't listening to that kind of rap at the time. I think I was more special ed, Fushnikins, like Leaders of the New School. Like that's where my ear was. Tribe Called Quest, Jungle Brothers, stuff like that. I was listening to that. Nas's aesthetic immediately got my attention. It's not that nobody was doing it. It's that nobody was doing it and rapping like that. Because prior to him coming on the scene, we had Kool G Rap that kind of represented the dope boy culture. We had Rakim that represented the knowledgeable brother culture. So we knew that existed. He took the two aesthetics and mixed them. He took the vocabulary of Rakim and the dope boy aesthetic of Kool G Rap, put it together, and Nas was created. Nas changed the way hip hop was going to be. Rakim did his due diligence to try to change rap the best he could and really solidify it. Him, Big Daddy Kane, Kool G Rap, all the guys, Lord Finesse, all the guys in that era. However, when Nas came, it was like somebody changed the channel and left it there because then everybody started going to that channel. You started noticing people coming about. Raekwon the Chef and Nas bear a striking resemblance to one another's aesthetic. I'm not even going to say one bit off the other. I know they used to hang out. Before Raekwon became Raekwon, he used to be out in Queensbridge. So I will say the influence is present. But let's talk about the fact that when Nasir Jones arrived with Illmatic, we all shut up and listened. Because not only was he rapping well, but he was using big words in context to make us understand how complex his bars actually were. Nas was talking to us at that time. So when I think about the track list for Illmatic, we start at the Genesis. That's just an intro. They're doing a lot of banter. And it's just kind of introducing you to how Nas is when he's not rapping, who he's around, what they talk about, how they are. So that was more of an introduction to him as a person. It did a very good job at kind of like letting us know how he was before he started rapping. When I think about opening bars, I think about Prodigy. There's a war going on outside no man is safe from. And it shouldn't surprise me that the next best opening bar that comes to mind is rappers I monkey flip them with the funky rhythm. That's what New York State of Mind gave me. New York State of Mind blew my head off with that. And I was like, man, I need to be better at rapping. Because at that time, I was messing around with the pen. But when Nas came around, he made me want to take it serious. Life's a Bitch for AZ, probably one of the most notable features up until that point. Up until that point, the feature on an album didn't really grab our attention. It was kind of like the sidekick to the main person whose album and song it was. AZ took the feature, flipped it on its head, and made the feature the person you wanted to try to go against when you put him on a track. I know that's what happened. The MC and Nas and the MC and AZ and the competitive nature of them both, that's exactly what occurred on that track. It's an iconic hip hop song on an iconic hip hop album. This song deserved to be on this album. AZ was introduced to us through it, and we got left with something that changed hip hop history. The World Is Yours, that song is hard. Speaks for itself. The chorus is dope. This is one of the first things I noticed about Nas. He likes pianos. His dad is a jazz singer, Oludara. I think that's his name. I should have probably did my homework prior to me saying that, but Oludara, if I'm not mistaken. I'm old enough to understand that it's probably Oludara. But Nas, being the son of a musician, has the ear of a musician. A lot of people, including myself, like to crap on Nas about the fact that he picks kind of obtuse beats. But it's understandable that he would pick obtuse beats because he listens to music differently than a person who doesn't listen to that type of music. For example, when I'm picking beats, I'm very heavy percussion. My mom had me around a lot of music, but growing up, I listened to a lot of rock music. So that's why I love percussion. If you see me pick any beat or love any beat, it'll be heavily influenced by a drum. Halftime was kind of underwhelming for me. It was a good song, but there's nothing that sticks out to it other than the trumpets. Or, yeah, that's trumpets. It has to be trumpets. You can't play a saxophone that fast. Or maybe you can. I've never played a saxophone. You probably can't play it that fast. That sounds like a trumpet if I'm not mistaken. Memory Lane, not something I really cared about when it was out. It wasn't one of those songs because I was too young to have memories. No, by the time I was 16, stuff like this didn't really matter much to me. I don't know how much older Nas was than me in 1994, but he definitely has an older soul than me. I think Nas might be like 6 years older than me, so he probably was old enough to have memories by the time he made Memory Lane, right? Yeah, for sure. He had memories. Let me tell you something. Today, I know it's a xylophone. When I first heard it on One Love, I had no idea what it was. What is that? Do, 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 do. Like, it made me invest in the story that was being told. The intro to the song made me never want to go to jail. That's one thing I appreciated about Nas. He told stories, but never necessarily glorified. He might have engaged in hyperbole to make you see the picture, because that's what rappers do. They speak in pictures. They just make you see it. Nas, to me, is an underrated storyteller. And I'm not even a huge Nas fan. One Love definitely made me want to become more of a storyteller, but I didn't have nobody to tell stories about because I didn't have no memories. I ain't gonna lie to you, One Time for Your Mom was kind of whack. I'm just gonna say that. One time for your mom, one time. I didn't like that. I feel like that should have been a Nori song. Y'all know Nori was like, come on, right? Represent was another underwhelming offering when it comes to that. It was more of an anthem, something you sing on the block. And I think Nas had that in mind when he made it. I feel like when Nas made Illmatic, he was like, man, my niggas is gonna love this. Because when you a real hip hop head and you're thinking about just making good hip hop songs, you're not thinking about making the ladies joint, making the song for the streets, making the song for the clubs. This was before that. Illmatic ushered in telling your life as it was. When he hit us with it, we saw where he was from. I'm from Brooklyn. I had never been to Queens up until that point. I had never been to Queensbridge, still to this day. But when he raps, I feel like I can see Queensbridge, even though I've seen pictures of Queensbridge. So you mix the raps with the actual visuals, and you can kind of be like, oh, Queensbridge is the project. It smells like this. It does that. There's a kid. You wonder where his mom is at because he's outside by himself. It's 9:30. What are we talking about? So you can kind of see it happening and unfolding before you because projects are the same everywhere you go. But he made me see his environment through his raps. It ain't hard to tell. I excel, then prevail. Now, when I first heard that, I was like, all right, I hear it. But this is what set Nas apart from other MCs at that time. Very lyrical, his vocabulary was top notch, but he wasn't using words out of context. Keith Murray using the word metaphysical just to rhyme it with something else is the example of people using big words out of context. But back to Nas. When you close an album out with It Ain't Hard to Tell, I want you to think about the messaging, right? So you start the album off with the Genesis, and maybe this is just me being performative in my thoughts. You start the album off with the Genesis, right? People say that your first album is the album that you took a lifetime to make. I've heard Jay-Z say that about Reasonable Doubt. So there's no doubt in my mind that Nas feels the same way about this. So for him to start this album off with the Genesis, here's who I am. Oh, me and my niggas. Oh, we busting it up. Hey, oh, don't do this. Hey, don't wave that in my face. Da, 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 da. Cool. Then you get to It Ain't Hard to Tell. So he's saying, oh, it ain't hard to tell that I'm going to be running rap for the next little while. Y'all gonna have to deal with me. So it ain't hard to tell why I'm the nicest person in the room. It ain't hard to tell why the rest of y'all are gonna start changing the way that y'all rap. It ain't hard to tell that I'm the nicest running the streets right now. What y'all gonna do about it? Go. Brooklyn's response was a sturdy and swift one. In September of 1994, the notorious B.I.G., also known as Christopher Wallace, dropped Ready to Die. When Ready to Die hit the streets, we knew right then and there that at that point in time, Christopher Wallace was the best rapper we had ever heard so far. I want us to recognize a couple of things. When Big died, he was 25. When he made Ready to Die, he was 22. He was rapping at that level at 20 to 22 years old. Let me say this. For a long time, people were like, oh, how you don't have Big in your top 5? I said it's because he only has 2 albums. I was met with, but he wrote all of Junior Mafia's raps. Those raps weren't good. He wrote all of Little Kim's raps. Those raps weren't excellent. They were good for girls. So if you're telling me that he did all that, plus his 2 albums is what makes him have to be in the top 5, that doesn't register with me. But if you're going to tell me that when he dropped Ready to Die, that everybody else was on notice, including Nas, there was an immediate rift sparked because they both used childhood pictures on the cover of the album, and they had Ghostface and Raekwon riding with him on Only Built for Cuban Links. Like, it's one of those things where there was a stark comparison. And I don't think it had anything to do with album covers. I don't think it had anything to do with Brooklyn Queens. And it had everything to do with the fact that Nas and Big took East Coast rap, put it on their back, and reshaped how we were going to deliver our raps going forward. I want you to look at everybody who came a rapping after Big and Nas hopped on the scene. Yeah, it speaks for itself. The number of names, the number of greats, the number of platinum plaques, the number of multi-platinum plaques, the number of diamond plaques that came after Nas and Big came and changed the game. But on to Ready to Die. Go. When this album hit the streets, you couldn't tell me it wasn't the greatest album I ever heard. On a re-listen, there's a lot of filler. Not gonna lie to you. For some reason, in the 90s, we loved intros and we loved skits. I can't stand skits and intros now. If you're not rapping on the intro, I don't want to hear it. If you're not doing some sort of spoken word on the intro where it makes me really, really hyped for the album that's coming up, I don't want to hear it. If it's not a speech by your grandma right before she passed away and she happened to get that sound bite to you so you can put it on the album and she knew that that's what it was for, then I will gladly listen, because I have a few sound bites of my parents that I plan on using on projects after they pass away, whenever that is. They're both me. They're going to be here for a while. I shouldn't joke about that, but dark humor is what it is. Go. Track 1 is an intro. Can't stand that. I skipped it. Track 2 is Things Done Changed. The thing I like about Things Done Changed is he explained clearly the difference between the way old school dudes did it and the way these young dudes are doing it now. Ain't nobody trying to talk. Ain't nobody trying to scrap. We up in the hammer. We squeezing. That's what it is. And it's sad that that's what it became, because a lot of us remember the days where we would just fight out our problems, see our enemy the next day that we just fought. We wouldn't fight him again. There was a respect there. There was an unspoken, we don't have to keep doing this. Unless the person who thought they should have won lost, then they're probably going to want to fight again. So you should always be prepared. Give Me the Loot was kind of underwhelming to me. I didn't really appreciate the 2 voice thing even then, and I find it just as grating now. I know they were going for rob and steal. It's 2 people. Give me the loot. Give me the loot. I get it. Didn't like it. Didn't like it then. Don't like it now. The 90s loved the rap reggae mix just as much as they loved the rap R&B mix. So I'm just going to say Machine Gun Funk was exactly that. Wasn't a great song. Was it a good song? Sure. Let's move on. Warning. Do I have to? I'm not gonna. So I'm gonna move on. But you know. Yo. Let me tell you something. The morning show with Ed, Lisa, and Dre is what used to wake me up in the morning before I went to the school building. Nay, before I went to the direction of the school building. Because anybody who knows me knows I'm a high school dropout. I can laugh about it now because I have a college degree. But it wasn't so funny then. However, when Warning, I remember when Warning came on the radio. I hopped out of bed, threw on my best outfit, went right to school, and just immediately wanted to start battling kids. That's what that song did for the MC inside of all of us. Because not for nothing, when you grow up in New York City, and I'm going to talk about Brooklyn notably because I don't really feel like talking about other boroughs right now. When you grow up in Brooklyn, everybody raps. Every block has a rapper. Every block has 2, 3 rappers. Every neighborhood has a group of rappers that think they're better than the other group of rappers. That's just what it was in the 90s. Warning, to me, was the standout gem on this album. The video, I never ever wanted to see him shirtless. He didn't deserve that. Rest in peace, Christopher Wallace, though. Ready to Die was one of those things that I felt like was a common theme for him. He always felt like death was near. You know, I guess growing up the way that he grew up, he felt like death was always around the corner. Unfortunately, it was nearly prophetic in that way, depending on how you feel about the conspiracy theories about who set who up to be killed or whatever. But barring that, he always felt that way, and that seemed to be a theme in most of his music. So, Ready to Die. I didn't necessarily care for the song even then because I'm not one of those people who thinks like that when it comes to writing music, because I wouldn't even want to put that out there like that because there's too many people that find reasons not to like you who want to make you ready to die from them. One More Chance was a radio hit. We all enjoyed it. We all sang along. We all played it for the ladies. It was on every mixtape. We remember those days. As a young dude, I didn't necessarily care for the radio hits. Of course, I sang it, but now that I think about it as an adult, it definitely wasn't one of my favorites on this album. Another skit. Look. Anyway, next up after the skit is The What with Big and Method Man. That song is hard. Listening to them trade bars lets me know how blessed we were in the 90s to have the MCs that we had. If you think about all the notable features, I just mentioned Life's a Bitch with Nas and AZ. I think about The What with Big and Method Man. You can go to every album and go, yo, that feature was hard. I need more of this. What Method Man had to go through just to even be able to do that song is hip hop lore in and of itself. But the pairing of those two MCs, that style of rap, the differences in their voices, the fact that they both have an amazing delivery, this is another one of the standout gems on this album. Juicy was the lead single. I didn't care for it. What do you mean it was all a dream? You used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper, and Heavy D up in the limousine, hanging pictures on the wall. Every Saturday, Rap Attack, Mr. Magic Molly Mall. You didn't do nothing else on Saturdays. It was just that. You're a liar. I just didn't care for Juicy, so I'm going to move on. Everyday Struggle, another one of my not so favorites. So look, let me start by saying I'm not one to use foul language, but I'm going to have to say it, and I'm probably going to bleep it out. Me and My even then wasn't one of my favorite songs. Because to be honest with you, I never referred to women that way. It's not because I thought I was cool. And I didn't even respect them a whole lot. Did a whole bunch of hoeing in the 90s. I just didn't like to use that word. And then I got a daughter, so it kind of like substantiated it. Back to Ready to Die. Big Papa was hard, another radio song. The one thing I will say about this album, his aesthetic and Puffy's plan, is to have 5 songs on the radio from an album that's pretty much a street album from a street guy during that time. That was unprecedented. It just didn't happen. Nas didn't even have 5 songs on the radio during that time. So think about the Notorious Big. He said it himself, fat, black, and ugly as ever. For him to have 5 songs on the radio, videos in rotation, features. This man was changing it right before our eyes. He let us know you didn't even have to be good looking to talk crazy to the ladies. It gave fat niggas way too much confidence. I wasn't feeling it at that time. I'm like, look, fat nigga, you still a fat nigga. I don't care what Big said. Your eye not crooked. You got regular eyes, so you ain't even got nothing. Friend of mine, Unbelievable. Listen, again, 1, another radio song. 2, another song that proved that he was rapping better than everybody at that time. If you encapsulate rap in 1994, everybody was pushing the genre forward when it came to their style of rap. For the most part, nobody was trying to copy off of anybody else. And when they did, that's how a lot of beef started. Oh, he biting off of me. Yeah, that's corny, blah, blah, blah. Now it just seems commonplace to bite. Yeah, he's doing it. Just do it like he's doing it. Let's all just bite. So the rules have changed. Like, they're not as astringent. They should have remained astringent. We need to be gatekeeping rap. People probably feel that way about me. Not to make it about me, but in a brief moment, people probably feel that way about me. So when I say stuff like that, I understand that people have the right to feel the same thing I feel, but about me. That's all. Act's Ready to Die. Again, another like death prediction song. Suicidal thoughts. I didn't necessarily care for it at the time because I didn't understand suicide at that time, only to later in life have 2 failed suicides. So I guess now I can relate. See, and that's the thing that maturing does. I think that's the thing when people still use the word classic, they're mixing the thought process. It's like, I remember loving this a lot. Classic. You can't do that. I remember loving this a lot, but now upon a re-listen, this album has a lot of filler. That's just the fact of the matter. I will say that Life After Death is better than this as a double album. Life After Death seems a lot more cohesive. This seemed like a bunch of songs they might have made in spots and spaces, and they were like, all right, man, it's time for you to come out. Because I honestly feel like if I'm listening to the album with my eye ears, you know what I'm talking about. I feel as though Who Shot Ya, Unbelievable, Big Papa, The What, Warning, and maybe Things Done Change were all made at the same time because they feel the most like one another. When I get to the end of this album and I go, okay, that was a lot. Go. Now that I listen to both albums, I really recognize how I was shaped during that time period. Because like I said, it was my second year of high school. I was still trying to figure it out. I was running around with 5MH out of Marlboro Projects next to John Dewey High School. I went to John Dewey High School for a year and some change before I got kicked out for gang violence, because that's what happens when you're a misguided young man with no father figure in the home. It really be like that. Go. It was a very misguided period of my life. I didn't really have a direction. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I fit in the world. Not fit in like trying to fit in. I didn't know where my lane was just yet. I want to say like around 1995, I figured it out. That's when I really was like, okay, this is the direction I want to go in. But these albums were so pivotal in that process. And I'm going to keep doing these because I really enjoy revisiting these albums and really thinking about who I was becoming during the time that this music was being made and what part of this soundtrack fed my emotions the most. It feels like yesterday. I know it wasn't, but every time I have a memory, I see it so clearly that it feels like it's right there. But then again, when doesn't it? Especially music being the time machine that it is. This is Wayne Ste7en. Thank you for stopping by the Classic Comparison. See y'all next time.
Unleash hell. I told y'all I wasn't going away.